Thank you so much for having attended my webinar on creating writing routines without the stress. I really hope that it was helpful to you. And if it was, just send me an email and let me know what helped, because I would love to hear from you. Now, I promise you a bonus, and the bonus is a bonus video. So after this webinar where I taught you to create a writing routine, you're probably wondering, okay, but I have created writing routines before and I've never been able to keep up with them. So am I not just wasting my time by creating a writing routine that I'm going to abandon 2 weeks from now? And there's multiple answers that I can give you there. One is no, because if you have 2 incredibly productive weeks of writing, isn't that kind of worth it? But the second is that there are ways in which you can continue your writing routine. I know you've abandoned them in the past, but there are tricks you can use and strategies you can use to keep your writing routine going, even after the novelty wears off. And that is what this video is all about. So I'm going to give you 3 ways to keep your writing routine going as an ADHD writer. Now let's start with the number 1 reason why you quit. A couple years ago, there was this psychiatrist called William Dodson, and William Dodson came to the conclusion that neurotypicals, if something is important, that is reason enough for them to keep doing it. Now, for us ADHDers, importance is not a great motivator at all. Instead, we are motivated by 4 things, and here they are. The first thing is interest. If we are interested in something or are passionate about something, then we're going to be motivated to work on it. The problem is that we are interested in and passionate about so many different things that this is actually not a great tool to use. 1, you can't simulate interests. You can't control your interests. And 2, you might be interested in your writing project, but you're also interested in 1,000 other things. So it's not going to be a great motivator for you to focus on your writing as opposed to other things that you could be doing with your time that you're equally interested in. The second source of motivation when you have ADHD is novelty. And this is why you probably have a lot of unfinished writing projects because you are excited, you're motivated to work on this new idea that you have. But once the novelty wears off, the motivation disappears. We rely a lot on novelty as a source of motivation. But novelty is fickle. By its very definition, it is only temporary. So novelty can help you start a writing routine or start a new writing project, but it cannot really help you continue this writing project or this writing routine. The third is challenge, and we're really going to focus on that one. But the fourth is urgency. And urgency as a motivation is probably something you've experienced a lot in your life, especially if you're working for a boss or if you have any sort of degree. Now, urgency is a source of motivation right before a deadline. But your writing project probably doesn't have a deadline and probably doesn't have accountability, which was the magic ingredient that I told you about in the webinar. So urgency is great. It can be incredibly effective, but 1, it only works at the very end of your project. And 2, if you are only motivated by urgency, if you use urgency as your only source of motivation, then you're going to be constantly in crisis mode. So a lot of the people who rely on urgency as a source of motivation have a very toxic relationship with their work. When they think about work, they already get stressed because work is associated with always being right before the deadline, always feeling like you are maybe not going to be able to complete by the time you're supposed to. So, interest is unpredictable, novelty is temporary, and urgency is also temporary, but at the other end of the spectrum, and can really lead to a toxic relationship with your work. So if we want to figure out how to continuously motivate you to keep working on your writing project, to continue your writing routine when the novelty has worn off and when you don't have any deadlines, we're going to have to play with challenge. So how do you use challenge as a motivator? Well, there are three ways to do that, really. One is as a dare. When someone tells you that you cannot do something, you're going to want to prove them wrong. You're going to do whatever you can to make sure that you will do the thing. So the dare is one component of challenge as a motivator. A second way that you can use challenge as a motivator is in the form of competition. So when you compete against yourself by trying to break a record or continue a streak, or you compete against another by scrolling through social media and seeing how productive other people are being, you are competing against either yourself or someone else. And competition can be a great way to motivate yourself through challenge. And the third, and my personal favorite, is gamification. So if you can make something feel playful, if you can make something a game, then you're probably going to be very motivated to continue to do it. Now, whatever way you choose, take one component of this gamification and make it fun. And I want you to write this down on a sticky note. Make it fun. Challenge can be a great source of motivation, but there is a risk involved. Like I said, when you use competition as your form of challenge and you continuously compete against unnamed others online, then that can be motivational, but it can also easily result in a feeling that you are not enough. Especially if you're comparing yourself with neurotypical people, people without ADHD, or you're comparing yourself with people who have a lot more time to write, or who might not have children, or who might not have a full-time job, then this comparison is unfair. You're setting yourself up to fail. When you are almost guaranteed to lose, it is no longer fun. And if it's no longer fun, it's not going to help you very much. So, whatever form of challenge you choose, make it fun. And that is the first way in which you can make sure that you continue your writing routine after you've established it. And the second way is to start prioritizing your writing. And I can hear you thinking right now, if I knew how to prioritize my writing, I wouldn't be sitting here listening to you. But I'm here to tell you, we do have some control over how we prioritize our projects. One way to control how you prioritize is through these sources of motivation. If you are more motivated to work on something, you will prioritize it more. But there's one other thing that I've noticed, both in myself and in the people I've worked with. And that is that for people with ADHD, the thing they spend most time on in a week is the thing that their brain believes is the highest priority. So if you spend most of your time at work, your brain thinks work is your priority. If you spend most of your time with your kids, your brain thinks that kids are your priority. And this is something that we can hack. Because what we can do is we can make sure that the thing you spend most time on in a week is writing. Now, I'm not saying to put your kids on the curb and to quit your job. I am saying that what we can do is we can infuse every part of your life with writing. So here are some examples. And I've taught this to a lot of my clients. And one of my clients is a nonfiction writer. And she told me that she spent a lot of time on the road. She spent a lot of time driving back and forth from doggy daycare. She spent a lot of time commuting, going to the stores. So she spent a lot of time in her car. Now, the beauty of a car is that you can listen to whatever you want. So what we figured out is that when she was in a car, she could start listening to podcasts and audiobooks that had to do with the topic of her book. And by listening through these podcasts or audiobooks, she was prompted to think about her writing project all the time. She came up with new ideas while she was commuting. It was incredibly productive for her because when she showed up at her desk, she already knew what to write. She had plenty of ideas that she wanted to write down. But this was also a way for her to keep reminding herself that writing is important in her life. Writing is a big part of her life, literally, because it is something that she spends a lot of time with, whatever else she is doing. Now, another example I have is from another client who had a lot of different writing projects. And he did have a full-time job, But he decided that actually that job was supposed to be in service to his writing. So with this job, he earned money that could buy him time to write, which was a very interesting way of looking at his job. But he also decided to infuse writing into his life in different ways. And one way in which he did that is by buying all these objects, these paraphernalia. He bought a plaque that said world's greatest writer. He bought mugs that had writing related things on it. And by doing that, he was constantly surrounded by objects that reminded him that he was first and foremost a writer, whatever else was going on in his life. And that leads us to the third way you can embed writing into your life, which is reminders everywhere. Now, you can use sticky notes. I have recommended a lot of things to write on your sticky notes. Keep doing that. But reminders can also take different forms. And one of the best forms that I have found is to use the real estate that you're looking at every single day anyway. And that is the background on your phone and your computer. If on this background you can put a quote related to writing, or an image related to writing, or maybe a vision board of what your life will look like after you finish your writing project, then every time you engage with your device, you're going to be reminded that writing is actually the most important thing in your life. Now, by using these strategies, you can really trick your brain into believing that writing is your number one priority, because it is everywhere. You're constantly reminded of it. You're constantly engaging with it. You will start prioritizing your writing naturally because you are constantly prompted to engage with your writing project. So that is the second way in which you can make sure that your writing routine keeps going after you've established that. But there is a third way. And that has a lot to do with experimentation. We talked about novelty being one of the sources of motivation earlier. And I kind of discounted it. I said, novelty will help you get started, but it will not help you continue. And that is true to a certain extent, but we can still use it to continue. But when your writing routine is new, it's going to be exciting. And habit theory says that at some point, after a certain number of days, this habit, this routine is going to become second nature to you. You're not going to have to think about it anymore. Now, it is at the point where you no longer have to think about it that it's going to start to become boring. And that's the point where you're going to quit. Now, what you can do is you can renew the novelty. So what you can do is you can make changes to your writing routine, changes to your writing habit to make it feel new again. The way that I have done this, and it's worked for a lot of my clients as well, is to put this into a larger framework of experimentation. If you take the mindset of experimentation and you say, I'm not going to invent a perfect writing routine right now, but rather, every time I get bored with it, I'm going to find ways to improve it and make it better. Then one, you take a lot of pressure off of yourself. And two, you can keep using novelty as a source of motivation to continue your writing routine. So I hope this was useful to you. Let me know how you're getting on through email, Susanna@passionatewritercoaching.com. And I'm hoping to hear from you soon. Bye-bye.